But you might be sitting there and being like, well, you know what? For me being employed and in a consistent place of work where for a long amount of time, or being in a long-term relationship where I know that we're both not perfect people but working towards a common goal, is way more important than being right or Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Juju, and welcome back to the 1% Juju podcast, where we teach you the practical steps to live your life like the 1%. As always, go ahead and make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast, whether it is on YouTube or on all these various podcast devices, so you make sure that you never miss an episode. We are actually going through the process of rebranding, so maybe you've noticed that we aren't on social media right now. My team and I are working really hard on that, so stay tuned for the things that are to come. We're really excited about what is to come, and we're going to continue providing a lot of value, whether it's from just the quality of what we do, but also the what we actually put within our podcast. But today, the topic, you probably clicked in for a reason, but we're going to speak about happiness and doing more of the things that make you happy and actually putting that in practice. And I'll go to like where this comes from, and there's actually a lot of like resources in some of my previous podcasts that I've made in the past. But when I speak about happiness, I'm not just talking about do whatever makes you happy or things of that nature, but it's actually talking about long-term happiness and not just the instant gratification, right? So I'm thinking here about, well, you're going through a rough day, right? The difference between going and getting a workout in versus just grabbing a drink and things of that nature, and why that specifically, and why we're going to speak about that. So so I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going through my notes here, so I'm going to talk about that conversation between putting band-aids on bad situations and almost making some situations worse. So poking at some wounds and actually making a difference, and how to figure out what the difference is between the two, because I think that there are some really practical ways that people don't often talk about. And sometimes we're like, oh, well, I'm just going to go ahead and put that Band-Aid on or medicate this one specific wound. And the reason is often because we just have no idea how to deal with it in any different way. So we will speak about that specifically, and not to say that like I'm an expert. I'm still in the process of like figuring that out. But at the same time, on a day-to-day basis, I try to do that. I try to put that in practice. I think this came off of like, I've been giving you guys a lot of context as far as like where it comes from, what I speak about. But yeah, recently, like, I also had like conversations with one of my coworkers specifically, and they just we were talking. What were we talking about? I think we were talking about like cold showers in the morning, and I spoke about the fact that like a while ago I started taking cold showers, and it made me feel good. And they were like, oh, well, that's interesting. Like, you probably like, because they know me as like this super competitive person and all that, and they thought like, oh, okay, well, you're probably doing that because you want to feel competitive like at all times in your life. And I think that to some extent there is that obsession that is in me, but a lot of it is also like is the fact that I try to do more of the things that do make me feel good and less of the things that do not make me feel good. And I think that that's one of the things that's going to help you elevate, whether it's professionally or all these areas of your life that you're looking to improve. And instead of like allowing some things to really hold you back. So really doing more of the things that make me feel good in in the long run, and less of the things that do not make me feel good in the long run. Overall, that's kind of like the approach that I try to bring to my life. So number one, the part that's like figuring out what actually makes you happy, right? Because that can be a tough part if you think about just that in itself. And when I think about it, sometimes like for myself, I'm like, how do you tell the difference between something that's just going to make me happy in the long run versus something that's just going to make me happy right now and just be a bad Band-Aid, right? So like, let's say I step out there and I just go buy a bunch of designer, right? Like, it's something that's going to make me feel good right now. I get to wear it. It's really cool. It's really fun. But then I turn around and I'm like, okay, well, now I'm out of a bunch of money, this money that I could have invested, this money that, that I could have done all these different things with. So in the long run, it wouldn't necessarily make me feel good. And sometimes we try to convince ourselves so bad, like, well, no, this is something that I really care about, something I really love, whether it's, drinking, whatever it may be. Sometimes we try to convince ourselves that it's hard to even look at ourselves. And I'm not really blaming anyone for that. I just think that it's genuinely hard to kind of look at yourself and say, oh shoot, like this is not actually helping me get to what my end goal is. It's actually holding me back, or just simply not helping me get to where I want. So the first part of that is obviously figuring out what really makes you happy. And I think that for that is creating a vision statement. I think that my very first podcast episode, so some of you guys that may be newer to the podcast, if you go back and you listen to my very first podcast episode, I speak about a vision statement and how important it is. And the reason I'm speaking about this now is because I'm actually in the process of updating my vision statement. I make one every single year. And it's really what it is really just you picking a timetable and writing down and really listing out where you want to be in your life. So whether it's, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, or maybe it is just a year from today, and just writing down exactly where you want to be, right? Like, what do you want life to look like? And really being specific about some of those goals and aspiration. And this is not necessarily the time to be, like, I'm cautious with that word, but being realistic or being conservative with your goals. It's really the time to really list out exactly where you would like to be in an ideal world, not where your mind tells you that you could end up, but realistically, like, where you would like to be. So you pick that timetable, and then you put it in clear words. What I like to do when I set my vision statement is actually writing it out as, a day in my life at that point. What does my life look like? What is a day looking like? Where am I going to work? What is my family situation? Where do I live? All those different things. So from like a professional standpoint, financially, physically, spiritually, from a relationship standpoint, all of those different things, write those out, where you would like to be. What are the things that are important to you? And I think that that's such a great thing, and it's helped me so much. Like, so personally, I read mine every single Monday. So the one that I had last year, for a year straight, I read mine every single Monday. And especially when times got hard, I really started understanding and started thinking about, like, how do those hard times fit within that vision statement? What are they teaching me in order to that is going to help me and allow me to get towards, where I'm trying to end up? Like, what are some lessons that I'm learning along the way? What are some of these challenges that maybe aren't, like, maybe this doesn't fit as part of the vision, whatever it may be. But I really started, like, getting an understanding, getting a grip of, like, okay, like, on the days, like, where I don't want to do it, well, how is that going to impact where I'm headed and where I want to be in the future? So list out that timetable, and it's really going to help you. And so when you start asking yourself about, we spoke about the things that, whether they make you happy or unhappy, right? If you're doing this exercise right, you're going to list out a life that truly makes you happy, right? Like, when you imagine the happiest of happy people, you're going to envision something that really would take you to maybe, like, your happiest moment, or how you felt in the past when you were at your happiest. Would you envision happiness from, like, looking at other people's life? And that's not always in the most healthy of way to looking at it, but in this situation, it can be really, really helpful of a thing. So when you start looking at this, you start asking yourself how your actions are impacting that, right? Like, and how your actions are impacting you getting to that end goal. So if you're just sitting there and all you're doing, I don't know, like, you're saying, like, well, on my vision statement, I've lost 50 pounds, but now you're sitting here eating a bag of chips. And not to say, like, I love Doritos, right? Like, they're great, but not to say that a bag of chips are bad, but you're starting to understand, like, okay, well, this is not really although it's making me feel good for an instant, it's not really helping me get towards my long-term vision and what my true idea of happiness is. And not to say that you need to lose 50 pounds, but I'm just saying, like, if that's one of your goals, if it's that's part of your vision, then like, you're starting to understand that you may be not taking the right steps in order to get there. That's just going to allow you overall to, and that brings you back to that point, that's going to allow you to figure out, to make the steps, and to put those in place, and to put the right strategies in place to reach those specific goals, right? Like, even if it is that, it does mean that you need help, because I think about myself, and I think about, like I don't know, now I'm caught up in this whole losing 50 pounds and eating a bag of Doritos, but I think about the diet culture that we're part of, right? So if you're saying, well, okay, well, I would like to lose 50 pounds, but you have no idea, where to even start and things of that nature, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna not eat for the next 3 months. Well, that's not the healthiest of ways, right? So now that maybe hire, whether it's a coach, hire it's a trainer, go to a nutritionist and things like that, and figure out what are some of the healthy habits that you can reach that goal. And maybe they're going to tell you, well, losing 50 pounds wouldn't be ideal for you, with your body shape, size, whatever it is. It wouldn't be healthy for you to lose 50 pounds. That wouldn't be a good thing. So now you start getting the right amount of help and things of that nature. So I don't want people to misconstrue here, to think that, like, I'm just telling everybody to go out and lose 50 pounds. But if you list out, what you want out of life, maybe it is, I don't know, maybe you want a different job. Now you can start figuring out, like, okay, well, this is my dream job. Like, now I know what I'm doing at my happiest. And now I can take a step into finding the resources in order to go out and get that dream job. So that's overall, like, what it's going to do for you. And that's what really that vision statement has allowed me to do. It's just allowed me to take account of every single thing I do in my life and understand, is it helping me get closer or further away from my goal? All right, because essentially most things, that's what they do. They rarely very, like, neutral. They either take your time, energy, your mind, money, or whatever it is, away from your goal, or they take you closer to your goal. So taking a good account of that. The second part that I think is very, very practical, that you can definitely start today, and both those things actually, they're going to be things that you can put in practice, like, literally today, and start working towards where you want to be. But the second one is journaling, and that's actually something that I've obviously been aware of journaling, but I would say, like, I've took on recently, and I've found really the power in it, and that's a little bit more recent. But it's a very specific way of journaling, and I think that there's one thing. I don't think that there's necessarily, like, a wrong way to journal, but I think that when I think about journaling now, and the reason maybe I didn't do it before is because I was like, I don't really feel like just writing down how my day was. It's like, it's whatever, right? Like okay, well, I woke up, I did the same thing. Like, I'm a big person of routine, so for me, like, there wouldn't be much changes, because it's just like, okay, I got up and I took care of my responsibilities. But when I think about journaling now, and the reason I would really recommend it to a lot of people is because I think that it's taking account and really documenting your actions and emotions, and how your actions impact your emotions, right? So taking account to, like, okay, when did I feel the best? When was I the happiest, right? And, like, when was I the most upset? When was I angry? When was I sad? And all those different things, and taking account of all these different emotions, and then trying to get an understanding of, like, what led me to that emotion. And for me, like, a really hard thing is, like, because I don't always know, like, what leads there, because I'm just like, I just go about life, and then I just grind and grind and grind, and, like, really kind of documenting it and keeping track of it is like, okay, today I felt really good. Today I was really thankful for my life, and, like, what maybe led to that? Maybe it's, like, seeing someone else living a more difficult life than mine. And, that doesn't necessarily mean that I need to now go out and just like stare down at homeless people all day long, but maybe it means that I need to spend more time volunteering, right? Like, and that gives me perspective, and allows me to understand, like, how good my personal life is, right? So that's one thing. That's one example, or I guess, like, one way to look at it. So really just like I said, documenting every single emotion that you're feeling, every single action you take, and how that react, what happens after that. Also documenting the things that are not in your control, right? Like, so how did it make me feel? Let's say when, I don't know, when my boss yelled at me, or when I got in an argument with a friend, or things of that nature, and how did I react to that? And understanding from there, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, I got in an argument with a friend. I reacted by insulting him even more. And now it made me feel really good for a certain amount of time. And now I feel like trash for 3 days, right? So a big thing about journaling that I discovered, and I want to give credit to the YouTuber who I found this on his channel, but I don't know it right now. So I'll try to put it in the description, the actual whole video, because I really want to give him a credit because the video was great. But understanding how long did you feel that emotion, right? So, well, let's say I come back from work and I'm like, well, I had such a bad day, and I down a whole bottle of wine, and I'm like, okay, great, now I feel better. So first of all, I don't drink, so that's like one thing that for me like doesn't really work. I mean, most of you guys know this about me by this point, but let's say I down a bottle of wine, I'm like documenting it. I'm like, ooh, I felt so much better after that bottle of wine. And then I wake up the next morning and I can see like, you know what? Now I'm back to feeling like trash because now my boss still yelled at me. Or was that the example here? I have so many examples that I'm getting lost, but now I'm thinking my boss still yelled at me, but on top of it, now I'm hungover, right? So I'm not really feeling better. So that good feeling only lasted for a certain amount of time. And now you start thinking about different, different solutions and different things that you can do when bad things happen, or overall over the course of your life. So overall, this strategy really, it's going to help you understand, how your actions make you feel, how your reactions make you feel, and for how long they make you feel that way, right? So, yeah, I'm getting lost in my notes here, but that's overall, like, that's really what I'm speaking about it when I'm talking about documenting it and journaling it. So once you do that, you're going to get some kind of an understanding of what are the things that make you feel good? What are the things that make you not feel so good? Right? Like, you're going to start seeing like, okay, well, every time I get in arguments with my friend, I react in a terrible way. And like, then I'm just more upset for like 3 days straight. So that's really not helping, even though I'm getting that temporary relief. Or every single time I go to the gym, I feel like crap because I'm so sore for a day, but then I feel so good about myself for like a week because I'm like, I did it. I stayed consistent for a week and I went to the gym and did all these things. So you start getting an understanding of like, what are the things that in the long run make you feel good, and what are the things that don't make you feel so good. So, and then you can try just doing more of the things that make you feel good and less of the things that do not make you feel good, which is overall the point of this whole podcast episode, which, yeah, that's great. So a few examples of that. Well, let's say you come back from your job, right? Like, life happens, right? Like, life is hard. There's just so much out there. There's a bunch of things that happen. There's a bunch of variables. There's some things that you can control. There's some things you can't. But your reaction, you can always control it, right? So you lose your job. Sometimes it's not because you did anything bad, right? Like, some people have budget cuts, whatever it might be. So you come back from work and you have a choice to make at this point, right? Like, you can decide like, well, I'm going to make the situation worse, which means I'm going to badmouth the company, the boss, and all of those things on social media. And I'm going to go on a rant, which now that, that makes you even less employable because now you just made the situation worse because your next potential company can just look that up and be like, okay, this is a highly emotional person. They're just going to badmouth us if something happens with us. Or you can start working on your resume, right? And reflecting on your career strengths, on your weaknesses, maybe what could have been, a situation where, okay, they had budget cuts, but they didn't decide to cut me specifically because I'm so valuable, whatever it might be. And start thinking about like, what did I do really well during my time at this job? So you can take that into account, but those are two different reactions. And if you're journaling them or, having an idea of where you want to end up, you can start understanding of like, how does my reaction right now help me get towards my goal? And like, if you look at like the journaling versus vision statement, right? The vision statement is very focused on the future, and while the journaling is more focused on like where you're at right now and taking account of like, past emotions and all of those things of how those things have made you feel. Another example, if you have a bad day, right? Like you come back from work, you're just pissed off, a bunch of clients pissed you off, coworkers pissed you off, all of that. You put that all together, you can sit there and, like I said, you can down a bottle of wine, or you can go out, maybe go work out, get your frustrations out that way, maybe go for a run, meditate, whatever it might be, and get control of your emotions that way, right? That's also an option for you. But one of them might make you feel really good in the moment, like we already spoke about in this example. The other one might take a little bit more effort to just get up and go to the gym and actually do something. But afterwards, you come back and you actually really feel good about yourself. Last example, you're in an argument with your significant other and you decide like, okay, well, I'm going to say something that I know is going to really make them out, like tick them off, just so like you're right in that instance. Or you can just be like, okay, well, I'm actually going to take a second and acknowledge why you're upset at me in this moment, and try to find a solution together, right? So the being right in the moment, you walk away big chest and be like, okay, yeah, I was right, I won the argument, things like that. But then you turn around and you're like, man, I have to live with this person, or still deal with this person for the rest of my life. Or you find a way to work together, which in that moment might take you a little bit of like you being a little more humble, but at the same time you start realizing that you're doing that in order for the long run, long-term happiness and success of the relationship. So those are a few things that are really important to take into account. And I think that, they're going to allow you to start doing more of the things that, make you happy. And I think that especially when you start looking at, you taking into account, social media and all the different influences, it's hard for you to really decide what makes you happy personally unless you document it and you allow yourself to have some quiet time and really decide what makes you truly happy. Because a lot of people are going to tell you like, oh no, you should never accept this from your job, or you should never accept this from like a significant other. But you might be sitting there and being like, well, you know what, for me being employed and in a consistent place of work where for a long amount of time, or being in a long-term relationship where I know that we're both not perfect people but working towards a common goal, is way more important than being right or not accepting this or not accepting that. So that might be working for you. So journaling, vision statement, documenting everything, that might be the way. And then you're really allowing yourself to do more of the things that make you happy and less of the things that do not make you happy. So I feel like I never finished the story at the beginning, which was basically that, yeah, I started taking cold showers and people were thinking like, oh, I'm just doing it because I'm competitive. But no, I was just actually started taking them because I realized that like when I get out of cold showers, I feel really good about myself. Like not only like, the health benefits that come with them that you guys can all Google. I'll probably put an article down in the description, but overall, like I then go about my day, like just feeling like, okay, there's another accomplishment that I can, like I've overcome another form of adversity of whatever it is. So sorry, I think I never finished this at the beginning of the episode, but if I did, now I just said it twice. So now we're here, but I'm going to stop here. Hopefully this is not too long. Let's see how we're doing on time. I think we're doing pretty good, but if you found some value, please go ahead and share the podcast, especially right now that we're not on social media. I need your help. Make sure that you are subscribed, all that good stuff. But share it with a friend, enemy, family member, whatever it is, so that they can get some of that good value out of it as well. Make sure to follow us on social media platform. Whenever we do come back, the links are still going to be in the description. Their handles are all going to be the same. But check out our website. We are still taking clients. I think that I'm going to, like right now it's tax season, so I got to figure a lot of things out. It is a little bit busy of a season, but please do feel free to email me and email my team. We are taking clients. We are going to start taking clients again for this year if you are looking to get your finances in order. But I don't think that I have anything else to shamelessly plug here. But make sure that, as always, you are taking the steps today to ensure that you're 1% closer to your goals than you were yesterday. Thanks for joining, everyone.